Hi there. Tonight, we're taking a journey back in time, over 2.5 millennia ago, to a land of sprawling empires, majestic cities, and fascinating customs. Imagine yourself not in your cozy bed, but standing at the gates of Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. The sun, a blazing orb in the azure sky, beats down, glinting off the polished stone of the towering Apadana staircase. You can almost feel the dry desert air on your skin, hear the distant murmur of 1,000 voices, and catch the faint scent of spices drifting from a nearby market. It's a world away from your modern comforts, a world of monumental architecture, intricate social structures, and, let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive a week without a smartphone or air conditioning. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and if you're feeling up to it, why not drop your location and local time in the comments? It's always fun to see how far these sleepy stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand there, a stranger in a strange land, but not for long. The sheer scale of everything is overwhelming. The gate, known as the Gate of All Nations, is flanked by colossal winged bulls with human heads, called Lamassu. Their gaze is ancient, watchful, seemingly seeing right through you. These aren't just pretty statues, they're symbols of power, guardians of a vast empire that stretched from the Indus Valley to the Aegean Sea. You watch as a procession of finely dressed individuals passes through, their robes flowing, their movements unhurried. They carry with them an air of quiet authority, a stark contrast to the hustle and bustle you might expect in such a grand place. Your first impression is one of order and immense wealth. The very ground beneath your feet, carved and smoothed, speaks of countless hours of labor and meticulous planning. This isn't a chaotic, ramshackle collection of tents. This is the heart of a sophisticated civilization. You might notice the vivid colors that once adorned these stone reliefs, now faded by time but hinted at by faint traces. Imagine vibrant blues, deep reds, and glistening golds, bringing the carved figures to life, soldiers, tribute, and nobles, all depicted with a remarkable sense of movement and individuality. Historians still argue whether the Persian Empire was truly a benevolent superpower or a ruthless conqueror. But from your initial vantage point, it feels remarkably well managed, almost serene, as you move deeper into the city. You might notice the intricate details on even the smallest carvings. A soldier's beard, the pattern on a robe, the delicate curve of an animal's muscle. Every element speaks of incredible craftsmanship. This attention to detail isn't just for show. It's a reflection of a culture that valued order, beauty, and precision. You might even chuckle softly to yourself, thinking how much effort they put into making things look perfect. Probably more effort than you put into folding your laundry last week. It's certainly a far cry from the hurried, mass-produced items of your own time. The air is dry, carrying the faint scent of sun-baked earth and something sweet, perhaps. Incense burning in a distant temple, or the fragrance of exotic flowers. In a palace garden, you see ordinary people going about their business, not just nobles. A merchant haggling over a bale of textiles, a potter shaping clay on his wheel, a group of women carrying water jars from a well. They move with a quiet purpose, their lives interwoven with the grandeur around them. You notice their clothing is simpler, more practical than the courtly attire, but still made with care. Even their everyday tools seem robust and well made, designed to last. The sense of scale, continues to impress. The vast open spaces, the towering columns, the sheer number of people moving through the complex, it all contributes to an overwhelming feeling of being a very small part of something truly colossal. You might try to imagine how long it took to build all of this, without modern machinery, just sheer human ingenuity and countless hands. It's a testament to the organizational power of the Persian kings, who could command such immense resources and labor. And it's an oddly soothing thought, the quiet hum of an ancient civilization going about its daily rhythms. A world so removed from your own anxieties that it almost lulls you into a sense of calm. You realize that even in such an ancient and powerful empire, life was still about the basics: food, shelter, community, and the occasional really impressive monument. As the grand spectacle of Persepolis begins to fade from your immediate view, your focus shifts to the more grounded reality of daily life for an ordinary subject in the vast Achaemenid Empire. You're not a king, nor a high-ranking noble. You're just ... you, and your day, like theirs, would likely begin with the rising sun, not a gentle alarm clock. Imagine waking on a simple reed mat, perhaps within a modest mud-brick home, the first rays of dawn filtering through a small, high window. There's no snooze button here, no scrolling through social media to ease into the day. Life is immediate, practical. Your first task would be personal hygiene, which, surprisingly, might involve a bit more than you'd expect for the era. While running water systems were elaborate for the elite, even common folk would value cleanliness. You might find yourself splashing cool water from a communal well onto your face, perhaps even using a type of natron, a naturally occurring salt, as an early form of soap or toothpaste. Forget your minty fresh paste. This would be more ... earthy. Then you'd likely don simple, loose-fitting linen or wool garments designed for comfort in the often hot climate. No elaborate fashion decisions to make here, unless you're feeling particularly daring and want to risk a minor scandal by wearing last season's tunic. Breakfast, if you even had a distinct one, would be simple. Perhaps some flatbread, a few dates, or a handful of olives. Forget your avocado toast and artisanal coffee. This is sustenance designed to fuel a day of labor. You'd likely eat with your fingers, perhaps sitting on the floor with your family, the morning quiet broken only by the sounds of the household stirring. It's a far cry from the hurried, multitasking breakfasts of modern life, offering a quiet moment of communal connection before the day truly begins. Historians still argue whether the concept of distinct mealtimes as we understand them truly existed for the common Persian, or if eating was more continuous throughout the day as hunger dictated. Then it's time for work. Unless you're part of the fortunate few who are scribes or artisans working indoors, you're likely heading out to the fields. If you're an agricultural laborer, the sun climbs quickly, and you're soon toiling under its relentless gaze, perhaps tending to barley or wheat fields, or caring for grapevines. The work is physical, repetitive, and demanding. You'd feel the ache in your muscles, the dust on your skin, and the sweat trickling down your back. There are no machines to lighten the load, just human strength and simple tools like wooden plows and sickles. You might find yourself wishing for a quick trip to the nearest convenience store for a chilled drink. But alas, only a clay jar of water awaits. If you lived in a town or city, your day might involve working as a craftsman, a potter, a weaver, a metal worker, or perhaps as a merchant in the bustling marketplace. Imagine the cacophony of sounds, the shouts of vendors, the bleating of sheep, the clatter of carts, and the murmur of countless conversations in various languages. The air would be thick with the smells of spices, animals, and perhaps even the lingering aroma of freshly baked bread. You'd navigate narrow, winding streets, avoiding stray animals and fellow pedestrians, your senses constantly engaged. It's a sensory overload compared to your quiet home, but vibrant and alive. Midday might offer a short respite from the most intense heat, a chance to rest in the shade and share a simple meal with fellow workers. This would be a crucial time for social interaction, for gossip, and for sharing news. Much like your modern-day coffee break, just with less caffeine and more dust. The afternoon would then bring more labor, continuing until the sun begins its slow descent. The rhythm of life is dictated by nature, by the sun and the seasons. A stark contrast to the artificial lights and schedules of your modern world. There's a certain honesty to it, a direct connection to the earth and its bounty. You wouldn't be checking your phone for notifications. Your notifications would be the changing light, the growling of your stomach, or the tired slump of your neighbor. It's a reminder that fundamental human needs haven't changed much, even if the ways we meet them have become incredibly complex. Having experienced a glimpse of the daily grind, let's now consider something a little more personal: Persian fashion and adornment. You might imagine ancient people dressed in drab, shapeless sacks, but you'd be delightfully mistaken. The Persians, particularly the Achaemenids, had a keen eye for style, and their clothing was often a vibrant reflection of their status, region, and even their mood. Forget your minimalist wardrobe. This was a world of rich textiles and thoughtful layering. As an ordinary person, your attire would be practical, but not without a certain elegance. You'd likely wear a simple tunic known as a kandis made of linen or wool, often dyed in natural colors like undyed cream, earthy browns, or perhaps a muted blue derived from indigo. This tunic would be long-sleeved and reach to your knees or ankles, providing protection from both the sun and the dust. Over this, you might layer a cloak or a heavier wrap, especially during cooler evenings or if you were traveling. It's a bit like your favorite comfy hoodie, but with significantly more historical gravitas. But here's where it gets interesting: the details. Even a simple tunic might be belted with a woven sash, perhaps in a contrasting color, and you might wear simple leather sandals on your feet. Head coverings were also common, especially for protection from the sun. Men might wear a soft cap, while women often wore veils or scarves draped over their heads, sometimes intricately embroidered. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of veils among women in ancient Persia was primarily for modesty, protection from the elements, or a symbol of status. Now, if you were a person of higher standing, or perhaps attending a special occasion, your wardrobe would transform. Imagine silks imported from the East, shimmering in the sunlight, dyed with vibrant pigments like deep crimson from madder root, or brilliant purple from murex snails. Colors so expensive, they were reserved for the truly wealthy. Your kandis might be exquisitely embroidered with gold thread, depicting scenes of hunting, mythical creatures, or geometric patterns. You might even wear multiple layers, each garment more luxurious than the last, creating a flowing, majestic silhouette. It's a bit like wearing your entire savings account, but in fabric form. Jewelry was also a significant part of Persian adornment. Both men and women wore elaborate pieces crafted from gold, silver, and precious stones like lapis lazuli, carnelian, and turquoise. Think intricate necklaces, heavy bracelets, ornate earrings, and even armlets. Kings and nobles would wear massive torques, rigid neck rings, as symbols of their power and authority. You might see a nobleman with a finely crafted gold armlet depicting a lion, or a queen adorned with a necklace of polished carnelian beads. It wasn't just about looking good. It was about displaying wealth and status, a silent language of power, and let's not forget the hair and beards. For men, meticulously curled and braided beards were a sign of nobility and wisdom. You might see elaborate styles, sometimes even with false hair woven in to achieve a fuller look. Imagine spending hours with a hot iron and pomade just to get your beard perfect, a true commitment to follicular excellence. Women, too, paid great attention to their hair, often braiding it and adorning it with ribbons, beads, or even small gold ornaments. It's a reminder that self-care and personal presentation are not modern inventions. They've been around for millennia, just with different tools and priorities. You might even spot someone with a particularly elaborate hairstyle and wonder if they had a dedicated stylist, or if they just had very patient friends. So, while your daily clothes might have been simple, the potential for sartorial splendor was immense. The Persians understood the power of appearance, using clothing and adornment not just for practical purposes, but as a sophisticated form of communication, telling stories of wealth, status, and identity without uttering a single word. It's a quiet, visual symphony of ancient style, designed to impress and subtly convey authority, even as you drift off to sleep. Now that you're looking suitably stylish in your ancient Persian best, let's talk about something truly vital to any civilization: food, drink, and feasting. Forget your bland diet. The ancient Persians enjoyed a surprisingly rich and varied cuisine, a testament to their fertile lands and extensive trade networks. This wasn't just about sustenance. It was about pleasure, social status, and even religious practice. Your everyday meal as an ordinary Persian would be relatively simple but wholesome. Imagine sitting down to a plate of flatbread, perhaps still warm from a clay oven, accompanied by dates, figs, and olives. You'd likely have some lentils or chickpeas, perhaps cooked into a stew with herbs and spices. Meat, while consumed, would be less frequent for common folk, reserved more for special occasions or religious offerings. Think of it as a diet rich in plant-based goodness, far healthier than your average fast food meal, even if it lacked the convenience of a drive-through. You might even find yourself reaching for a bit of cheese made from sheep or goat milk. Its salty tang, a welcome addition, but where the Persian palate truly shone was in their feasts. If you were fortunate enough to be invited to a banquet at a noble's house, or, dare to dream, the king's court, you'd be entering a world of culinary extravagance. These weren't just meals. They were elaborate affairs designed to impress and delight. Imagine reclining on soft cushions, perhaps on a raised platform, as servants moved gracefully, presenting dish after exquisite dish. What would be on the menu? Lots of meat, for starters. Roasted lamb, goat, and beef would be staples, often seasoned with a rich array of spices like saffron, cumin, and coriander. Game birds, like partridge or quail, might also make an appearance. Historians still argue whether the Persians regularly consumed exotic animals like gazelle, or if such tales were largely for show. Vegetables were abundant too. Various greens, carrots, turnips, and the ever-present lentils and chickpeas, often prepared with fragrant sauces. You might find yourself reaching for a roasted eggplant, its smoky flavor perfectly complementing the rich meats. The use of fruit was extensive, both fresh and dried. Pomegranates, apples, grapes, and quinces would be served alongside the main courses, offering bursts of sweetness and acidity. And let's not forget nuts, especially pistachios, and almonds, which were likely incorporated into many dishes or served as snacks. It's a bit like a gourmet picnic, but with more pomp and significantly fewer ants than now for the drinks. Wine was incredibly popular among the Persian elite, and they produced a variety of excellent vintages. You might be served in elegant metal or ceramic goblets, and the wine would likely be diluted with water, a common practice across the ancient world. They weren't quite doing wine pairings like modern sommeliers, but they certainly knew how to enjoy a good vintage. For those who preferred non-alcoholic options, fruit juices, especially from pomegranates, and plain water would be available. The water, by the way, might have been surprisingly cool, thanks to ingenious ancient refrigeration methods like underground ice houses. Perhaps the most iconic aspect of a Persian feast was the emphasis on desserts and sweet treats. Honey cakes, pastries filled with nuts and dried fruits, and various confections made from dates and honey were common. This focus on sweetness speaks to a rich agricultural bounty and a refined palate. You might even find yourself trying a type of ice cream flavored with fruit or rosewater, chilled with snow brought down from distant mountains, a truly luxurious indulgence for the time. It's enough to make your modern sweet tooth ache with anticipation, or perhaps just make you feel a little sleepy from all the imagined sugary goodness. The atmosphere at a feast would be lively, but perhaps also surprisingly orderly. There would be music, perhaps from lutes or harps, and performances by dancers or storytellers. Conversation would flow, and guests would enjoy the company, the food, and the libations. These feasts were not just about eating. They were crucial social events, opportunities for networking, alliance building, and displaying one's wealth and generosity. It's a reminder that even thousands of years ago, people loved a good party, especially one with excellent food and plenty of drinks. Just try not to fall asleep in your wine goblet. After all that feasting, you'd eventually need a place to rest your weary head. So, let's tiptoe into the world of housing and homes in ancient Persia. Just like today, homes ranged from humble to spectacularly grand, reflecting the social strata of the time. You wouldn't find any sprawling suburban developments or tiny city apartments, but rather designs perfectly adapted to the climate and culture. For the vast majority of ordinary people, your home would likely be a modest, mud brick dwelling. Imagine thick, sun-dried mud brick walls, which provided excellent insulation against the scorching summer heat and the surprising chill of winter nights. The roof might be flat, made of packed earth and straw, perhaps even used for sleeping on during stifling summer evenings, offering a cool respite under the stars. Inside, the space would be simple, likely with one or two main rooms. There wouldn't be much furniture as you know it, no plush sofas or elaborate beds. Instead, you'd find woven mats, cushions, and perhaps low wooden tables for eating. It's a minimalist approach born of necessity, but also practicality. You'd probably spend most of your waking hours outside, so the home was primarily for sleeping, storing belongings, and finding shelter. Light would come from small, high windows, sometimes covered with wooden grills to keep out the sun and dust, and to provide privacy. Imagine the soft, diffused light creating a peaceful, almost shadowy interior. Cooking would be done over an open fire or in a simple clay oven, perhaps in a separate courtyard or a dedicated part of the main room. There's no modern plumbing so water would be fetched from a nearby well or public fountain, a daily chore that might make you appreciate your kitchen tap just a little bit more. Historians still debate the exact layout of common homes, as archaeological evidence for them is less preserved than for grander structures. Now, if you were a bit more affluent, perhaps a successful merchant or a minor official, your home would be more spacious and comfortable. You might have several rooms, possibly arranged around a central courtyard. This courtyard would be a vital part of the home, providing a private outdoor space for family activities, cooking, and even a small garden. Imagine a splash of green, perhaps a few fruit trees or fragrant herbs, bringing a touch of nature into your urban dwelling. This design, with rooms opening onto a central courtyard, is incredibly efficient for airflow and providing shade, something the ancient Persians had mastered, but where the real luxury lay was in the palaces and grand estates of the elite. Here, you'd find true architectural marvels. Think sprawling complexes with numerous rooms, vast reception halls, and multiple courtyards, often featuring elaborate water channels and formal gardens. The walls might be adorned with plaster reliefs or colorful frescoes depicting scenes of daily life, hunting, or mythical figures. Floors could be paved with stone or intricate mosaics. Imagine the cool feel of polished stone underfoot, a stark contrast to the dust outside. These grand homes would have dedicated areas for different functions: sleeping quarters, dining rooms, reception halls for guests, and private women's quarters. Ventilation would be achieved through clever architectural features like wind catchers, badges funneling cool air into the building, a truly ancient form of air conditioning that might make you wonder why we don't use them more often today. You might even find yourself admiring the ingenuity, thinking they really thought of everything, except maybe Wi-Fi. Furniture would be more elaborate: carved wooden chests for storage, finely crafted tables, and plenty of plush cushions and carpets for seating and lounging. Imagine sinking into a pile of soft textiles after a long day. The focus was on comfort and aesthetics, reflecting the owner's wealth and taste. And of course, access to water would be much easier, possibly with private wells or even channels bringing water directly to the estate. Whether humble or grand, these Persian homes were more than just buildings. They were reflections of family, life, social order, and a deep understanding of how to live comfortably within their environment. They weren't filled with the gadgets and conveniences you're used to, but they offered shelter, privacy, and a sense of belonging in a world much grander and perhaps a little more demanding than your own. With a comfortable home to retreat to, let's now consider how these ancient Persians spent their days, focusing on work and occupations. In a vast empire like Achaemenid Persia, the diversity of labor was immense, from the fields to the grandest palaces, each role essential to the functioning of this complex society. You wouldn't find anyone quiet quitting here. Everyone had a part to play. For the overwhelming majority, life revolved around agriculture. If you were a commoner, you would likely be a farmer, tilling the fertile lands of Mesopotamia, the plains of Iran, or the Nile Delta in Egypt, all under Persian rule. Your days would be dictated by the seasons, ploughing with simple wooden ploughs drawn by oxen, sowing seeds, tending to irrigation channels, a vital task in a largely arid region, and finally harvesting crops like barley, wheat, lentils, and grapes. This was back-breaking work, done under the scorching sun or in the bracing cold, reliant entirely on human and animal power. You'd feel the rhythm of the earth, a deep connection to the cycle of growth and harvest that your modern life has likely obscured. Historians still argue about the exact proportion of the population engaged directly in agriculture, but it was undoubtedly the backbone of the empire. Beyond farming, there was a thriving world of craftsmanship. If you had a particular skill, you might be a potter, shaping clay into functional vessels and beautiful artworks, firing them in kilns. Or perhaps a weaver, creating intricate textiles from wool or linen, or even the prized silks that journeyed along the nascent silk routes. Imagine the rhythmic click-clack of the loom, the scent of dyes, and the satisfaction of watching raw fibers transform into something beautiful and useful. You could be a carpenter, shaping wood for homes, furniture, or tools, or a metal worker, hammering bronze and iron into weapons, implements, or exquisite jewelry. These were not mass-produced goods. Each piece would carry the unique mark of its maker. In the bustling cities, a vibrant merchant class facilitated trade. You might find yourself haggling over prices in a noisy bazaar, buying and selling everything, from spices and perfumes to timber and precious stones. Imagine the hubbub, the exotic scents, the myriad of languages being spoken as goods flowed across the empire. This wasn't just local trade. The Persians were masters of long-distance commerce, connecting east and west. You could also be a scribe, a highly valued and literate individual, meticulously copying texts, keeping records, or drafting official documents. This was a profession of quiet power, requiring immense discipline and a steady hand, far removed from the clamor of the marketplace. You wouldn't be typing frantically, but rather carefully shaping each cuneiform or Aramaic character. Knowing its importance, the vast Persian administration also created numerous roles. You could be a tax collector, a job probably as unpopular then as it is now, ensuring the empire's coffers were filled. Or perhaps a royal guard, disciplined and loyal, protecting the king and his palaces. There were also engineers, overseeing monumental construction projects like irrigation systems or grand palaces, and architects, designing the impressive structures we marvel at today. You might be part of the team building a new section of the royal road, shaping the very infrastructure of the empire with your bare hands. It's a reminder that large-scale projects have always required immense human coordination, and let's not forget the soldiers. While we'll delve deeper into the army later, many able-bodied men would serve, either as full-time professionals or as part-time levies. Their work was to train, march, and, when necessary, fight to defend and expand the empire. It was a life of discipline, danger, and often long periods of boredom punctuated by moments of intense terror. You wouldn't be sitting in an office chair. You'd be carrying a spear and shield, marching for miles under the hot sun. From the farmer, coaxing life from the soil, to the artisan crafting beauty from raw materials. From the merchant connecting distant lands to the scribe preserving knowledge, every occupation played a crucial role. Each person, in their own way, contributed to the colossal engine that was the Achaemenid Persian Empire. It's a testament to human ingenuity and resilience, a world where your daily bread was earned through tangible effort, a concept that might feel strangely soothing in its simplicity. With a full workday behind you, and perhaps a few sore muscles, let's explore the world of education and childhood in ancient Persia. You might imagine a rigid, formal schooling system, but for most children, learning was far more practical and interwoven with daily life. There were no brightly colored playgrounds or interactive whiteboards, But learning was constant. For the vast majority of children, especially in rural areas, childhood was a hands-on apprenticeship. From a very young age, perhaps as young as 5 or 6, you would begin to learn the skills necessary for your future role in the family and community. If you were a boy in a farming family, you'd be out in the fields with your father, learning how to plow, sow, and harvest, how to manage livestock, and how to maintain irrigation channels. You wouldn't be studying algebra. You'd be learning the rhythm of the seasons and the subtle signs of a healthy crop. This practical education ensured continuity of skills from one generation to the next, a deep knowledge passed down through observation and imitation. It's a bit like learning to ride a bike by just getting on and pedaling, rather than reading a manual. If you were a girl, your education would largely center around the domestic sphere. You would learn from your mother and other female relatives how to manage a household, preparing food, weaving textiles, making clothing, caring for younger siblings, and understanding the nuances of herbs for medicine or cooking. This wasn't seen as a lesser education, but as equally vital to the family's well-being and survival. You wouldn't be playing with elaborate toys, but rather helping with daily chores, honing skills that would be indispensable when you eventually ran your own household. Historians still argue about the extent of formal education for girls, but it was certainly less common than for boys, particularly outside the elite. For children of the elite, the sons of nobles, priests, or high-ranking officials, education took a much more formal and structured approach. These boys would often begin their training around the age of 7. Imagine waking before dawn, not for school bus, but for rigorous physical training. They were taught to ride horses with exceptional skill, to handle bows and arrows, and to wield spears. The goal was to produce strong, disciplined warriors and leaders, embodying the Persian ideal of physical prowess. You'd be running, jumping, wrestling, and honing your reflexes. Far from the sedentary life of modern schooling, beyond physical training, these elite boys also received a moral and intellectual education. They were taught the principles of Zoroastrianism, the dominant religion, emphasizing truth, justice, and good deeds. They learned about the history of the empire, the customs of their ancestors, and the importance of loyalty to the king. They would also learn to read and write, often in Aramaic, the lingua franca of the empire, using stylus and clay tablets or papyrus. Imagine painstakingly forming each character, a far slower process than typing on a keyboard, but in a deep appreciation for language and knowledge. You wouldn't be glued to a screen. You'd be glued to a clay tablet. They might also learn arithmetic, some basic astronomy essential for understanding the seasons and time, and the art of eloquent speech. The emphasis was on developing character, truthfulness, courage, self-control, and respect for elders. The famed Greek historian Herodotus noted that Persian boys were taught to ride, to shoot with the bow, and to speak the truth. It sounds simple, but it was a profound educational philosophy aimed at shaping well-rounded citizens and future leaders. You wouldn't be worried about your GPA. You'd be worried about living up to these ancient virtues. Quirky tidbits. Some accounts suggest that elite Persian boys were also taught to endure hunger and thirst, and to brave the elements, further hardening them for military and leadership roles. It's a bit like a survival camp, but with more emphasis on moral fortitude and less on spores. So, while your own childhood might have involved video games and sugary snacks, there's involved rigorous discipline and a deep connection to practical skills and ethical conduct. It was a childhood designed not just for learning, but for becoming a fully contributing member of a complex and demanding society. After exploring the rigors of education and work, let's consider the bedrock of ancient Persian society: family and social bonds. In this ancient world, the family unit wasn't just important, it was absolutely central to your existence, providing support, identity, and a sense of belonging in a way that perhaps few modern societies truly experience. Forget your individualistic aspirations. Here, you were part of a larger whole. At the core was the extended family. You wouldn't just live with your parents and siblings. It was common for grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins to live together in the same household or in very close proximity. This multi-generational living created a strong support network, especially in an era without social safety nets. Imagine a bustling household, full of different ages and experiences, where wisdom was passed down directly, and everyone had a role to play. Children were cared for by many hands, the elderly respected for their knowledge, and labor was shared. It's a far cry from the nuclear family model, where you might only see your distant relatives at holidays. Marriage was a fundamental institution, viewed not just as a union between two individuals, but as an alliance between families. While love certainly played a role in some unions, practical considerations like status, wealth, and perpetuating the family line were paramount. Marriages were often arranged, especially among the elite, to solidify social standing and political alliances. You wouldn't be swiping right on a dating app. Your parents would be doing the matchmaking, likely with considerable thought and negotiation. Historians still argue about the extent of individual choice in marriage for commoners versus the elite. But family approval was always key. The patriarchal structure of society meant that the eldest male generally held authority within the family. His decisions would guide the household, from economic matters to the marriages of his children. However, this authority often came with significant responsibility for the well-being of all family members. Women, while operating within this structure, held considerable influence within the domestic sphere, managing the household, raising children, and often overseeing household production like weaving. Remember those discussions about women's roles. They weren't just decorative figures. They were crucial managers of the domestic economy. Children were highly valued, particularly sons, who would carry on the family name and traditions. Having many children was seen as a blessing and a sign of prosperity. Imagine the joyful chaos of a large Persian family, with children playing, learning, and contributing to the daily life of the household. The elderly were also revered, their accumulated wisdom and experience respected and sought after. They weren't shipped off to nursing homes. They were integral parts of the household, continuing to contribute to the family's well-being and offering guidance beyond the immediate family. Community bonds were incredibly strong. In villages and neighborhoods, people relied on each other for support, cooperation in farming, and mutual protection. Festivals and religious ceremonies brought people together, reinforcing shared cultural and religious identity. You'd know your neighbors, not just by sight, but by their lineage, their daily routines, and their contributions to the collective good. This sense of shared responsibility and interconnectedness created a powerful social fabric. You wouldn't be anonymous in a crowd. You'd be recognized, known, and expected to participate. Even social rituals reinforced these bonds. Hospitality was a deeply ingrained virtue. Offering food and shelter to travelers was not just polite, but often a moral imperative. Sharing a meal was a powerful act of bonding, creating kinship even between strangers. This ancient emphasis on hospitality might make you think twice about complaining about having to host your distant relatives for the holidays. In essence, ancient Persian society was built on a foundation of strong, multi-layered social connections. Your identity was intricately tied to your family and your community, offering a profound sense of belonging and mutual support. It was a world where individual well-being was inextricably linked to the strength of the collective, a soothing thought in its simplicity. Perhaps you might find yourself wishing for a bit of that closeness in your own hurried world. With the family and community as your foundation, let's now turn our attention to one of the most defining aspects of the Achaemenid Empire, the Persian army. This wasn't just any fighting force. It was a vast, disciplined, and remarkably effective military machine, crucial for maintaining control over an empire stretching across 3 continents. You wouldn't be signing up for a short stint. Military service, for many, could be a significant part of their lives. For free Persian men, military service was not just an expectation, but a right and often a point of pride. From a young age, as we touched on in our discussion of education, boys of the elite were trained in horsemanship, archery, and spear throwing. This wasn't just physical education, it was preparing them for their eventual role in the empire's defense and expansion. Imagine spending your youth mastering the bow from horseback, a skill that would make you a formidable warrior, capable of raining arrows down on an enemy while galloping across the plains. The core of the Persian army was its infantry and cavalry. The most famous units were probably the Immortals, an elite corps of 10,000 professional soldiers. They were called Immortals because their number was always maintained at precisely 10,000. If one fell, another immediately took his place, giving the illusion of an unending force. Imagine the psychological impact on an enemy facing a unit that seemed to never diminish. These were highly trained, impeccably equipped soldiers, adorned with elaborate tunics, scale armor, and often carrying wicker shields, short spears, and bows. Historians still argue about the exact composition and duties of the Immortals, whether they were solely a royal guard or also frontline combatants. Beyond the Immortals, the army comprised a diverse array of units drawn from across the empire's vast territories. You would see Medes, Egyptians, Babylonians, Scythians, and various other peoples, each contributing their unique fighting styles and equipment. This multicultural force was both a strength and, at times, a logistical challenge. Imagine the Tower of Babel in military formation, with different languages, customs, and fighting techniques all brought together under one banner. You might find yourself marching alongside someone whose culture was utterly alien to yours, united only by loyalty to the great king. Cavalry was a particularly strong arm of the Persian military. Persian and Median horsemen were renowned for their skill, often employing tactics like feigned retreats to lure enemies into traps, or rapid charges to break enemy lines. The development of chariots, though perhaps less common in later periods, also speaks to their mastery of horse warfare. Imagine the thundering hooves of thousands of horses, a truly terrifying sight for any foe. You wouldn't be stuck in traffic. You'd be riding a horse, probably at breakneck speed. The Persian army was also a logistical marvel, supplying hundreds of thousands of soldiers, often campaigning far from their homelands, required immense organization. This meant intricate supply lines, vast granaries, and detailed planning for water and provisions. Imagine the sheer effort required to feed and equip such a massive force moving across deserts and mountains. It's enough to make your head spin, or perhaps just gently nod off thinking about spreadsheets in ancient times. While the army was formidable, it also adapted to changing circumstances. They were masters of siege warfare, employing techniques to breach city walls, and also adept at building temporary bridges for river crossings, like the famous bridge over the Hellespont. The engineering prowess behind these military endeavors was astounding. Life as a soldier would be one of discipline, long marches, and periods of intense boredom interspersed with moments of terrifying combat. You'd learn to rely on your comrades, to obey orders without question, and to endure hardship. The military was a powerful force for social cohesion, bringing together men from diverse backgrounds under a common purpose. It was a career that could bring prestige and plunder, but also demanded immense sacrifice. You wouldn't be thinking about your next vacation. You'd be thinking about your next battle, or perhaps just your next meal. From the discipline of the common soldier, let's ascend to the pinnacle of Persian power and grandeur, royal court life. This was a world of unimaginable luxury, intricate protocol, and subtle power plays, all centered around the figure of the great king. You wouldn't be casually dropping by. An invitation to the court was the ultimate sign of favor, and every movement, every word, was carefully considered. Imagine stepping into one of the king's vast palaces, perhaps at Persepolis, Susa, or Ecbatana. The sheer scale is breathtaking. Colossal columns, often topped with intricate bull or lion capitals, soar towards the ceiling, painted in vibrant colors, now long faded but hinting at their original splendor. The floors might be polished stone or intricate mosaics, reflecting the light from massive windows or skillfully designed openings. You'd feel the cool air, perhaps channeled through ingeniously designed wind catchers, a welcome relief from the outside heat. It's a bit like walking into the grandest hotel lobby you can imagine, but with thousands of years of history emanating from every stone. The atmosphere would be one of hushed reverence, punctuated by the soft rustle of expensive robes and the quiet murmur of voices. You would see a constant stream of officials, nobles, and emissaries from across the empire, all moving with a practiced deference. Everyone has a place, and everyone knows it. The hierarchy is visually apparent in their clothing, their jewelry, and their proximity to the king himself. This isn't a casual gathering. It's a meticulously choreographed ballet of power. The king himself would be the absolute center of this universe. He was not just a ruler. He was seen as a semi-divine figure, chosen by Ahura Mazda, the supreme deity of Zoroastrianism, to rule the world. When you approached him, you would likely prostrate yourself, a gesture of absolute submission known as proskynesis. This wasn't meant to demean you, but to acknowledge his unparalleled status. Imagine bending low, feeling the cool stone against your forehead, and then rising to meet the gaze of the most powerful man in the world. Historians still argue about the exact nature of this ritual for non-Persians, but for native Persians, it was generally viewed as an act of respect rather than worship. Daily life at court revolved around ceremony, administration, and entertainment. The king would hold audiences, receive petitions, and issue decrees that would reverberate across the empire. There would be a vast retinue of eunuchs, scribes, bodyguards, and servants, all dedicated to the king's comfort and the smooth running of the palace. You might see eunuchs who held positions of great trust and influence within the court, moving quietly about their duties, their presence a testament to the king's absolute control. Meals were elaborate affairs, far grander than any feast you've yet imagined. The king's table would be laden with the finest foods from every corner of the empire, prepared by a legion of cooks. Imagine exotic fruits, rare spices, and a dizzying array of meats and pastries, all served on gold and silver platters. Entertainment was equally lavish, musicians playing lutes and harps, dancers performing intricate routines, and storytellers captivating the court with tales of heroes and gods. It's a bit like a never-ending, highly exclusive dinner party, but with infinitely higher stakes. Beyond the public display, the court was also a hotbed of political intrigue. Behind the lavish ceremonies, powerful factions vied for influence, and whispers of conspiracies were never far away. Advisors, generals, and family members constantly navigated a complex web of loyalties and rivalries, each seeking to gain the king's ear and advance their own interests. You'd need a keen eye and even keener ears to navigate this treacherous landscape, remembering that a misplaced word could lead to swift and severe consequences. The royal court was more than just a residence. It was a microcosm of the empire, a carefully constructed world designed to project immense power, wealth, and divine authority. It was a place where history was made, alliances were forged, and fortunes could be won or lost with a single glance from the great king. It's an intoxicating thought, but perhaps one that makes you grateful for the quiet simplicity of your own home tonight. Stepping away from the dazzling, yet potentially dangerous, world of the royal court. Let's find some tranquility amidst the ancient Persian landscape. We're going to wander through the gardens of paradise. These weren't just pretty patches of greenery. They were meticulously designed, often walled enclosures that served as symbols of order, power, and a profound connection to nature. You wouldn't find these on a basic landscape gardening show. They were masterpieces of hydrological engineering and aesthetic beauty. The very word paradise comes to us from the old Persian word perideaza, meaning a walled enclosure or a garden. So, when you hear paradise, you should immediately think of a beautiful, protected garden. Imagine stepping through a grand gateway into one of these serene spaces. The first thing that strikes you is the stark contrast with the arid landscape outside. Inside, everything is green, lush, and alive. It's a literal oasis, a testament to human ingenuity in coaxing life from the desert. You might feel a gentle breeze, carrying the scent of blossoms and damp earth, a welcome relief from the dry air you've become accustomed to. The layout of these gardens was typically very formal and geometric, often divided into 4 quadrants. By intersecting water channels or pathways, this Chahar Bog for gardens design was not just aesthetically pleasing. It held symbolic meaning, often representing the 4 Zoroastrian elements: earth, air, fire, water, or the 4 directions of the world. Imagine perfectly straight lines of cypress trees. Their dark green forms a striking contrast to the lighter foliage, creating a sense of ordered beauty. It's a bit like a giant, tranquil chessboard, but made of living things. Water was the lifeblood of these gardens. Elaborate systems of aqueducts, qanats, canals, and fountains brought precious water from distant mountains or underground sources, ensuring that every plant, every tree received sustenance. You might hear the gentle murmur of water flowing in narrow channels, the soft splash of a fountain, or the tranquil reflection of the sky in a still pool. This wasn't just about irrigation. It was about creating a multisensory experience where the sound of water added to the overall sense of peace. You wouldn't be worried about your water bill. You'd be marveling at the sheer effort involved in bringing this liquid gold to life. What would you find growing in a Persian garden? A delightful array of plants, chosen for their beauty, fragrance, and utility. Tall cypress trees were common, symbolizing immortality and eternity. Fruit trees like pomegranates, figs, dates, apples, and quinces would provide shade, beauty, and delicious produce. Fragrant flowers, especially roses and jasmine, would fill the air with their intoxicating scents. Imagine the vibrant colors and rich aromas, a truly sensory feast. You might even spot a small pavilion or kiosk within the garden, a perfect spot for the king or noble to relax, read, or enjoy a quiet meal away from the hustle of the palace. These gardens served multiple purposes. They were places of leisure and contemplation, offering a retreat from the stresses of court life or the heat of the day. They were also symbols of the king's power and ability to control nature, transforming barren land into fertile beauty. Furthermore, they had an economic function, providing fruits, herbs, and even timber. And perhaps most importantly, they were seen as reflections of paradise itself, a foretaste of the spiritual realm described in Zoroastrian texts. Historians still argue about the precise theological symbolism embedded in every aspect of the garden, but its connection to spiritual ideals is undeniable. Strolling through a Persian garden, you'd feel a profound sense of peace and harmony. The careful balance between natural beauty and human design, the soothing sounds of water, the gentle fragrance of blossoms, it all combines to create an atmosphere of quiet serenity. It's a perfect place to unwind, to let your thoughts drift, and to appreciate the ancient art of creating beauty out of seemingly nothing. You might even feel a little envious, wishing you had your own walled garden to escape to after a long day. Having found a moment of peace in the Persian gardens, let's delve into the spiritual heart of ancient Persia, Zoroastrian faith. This was not just a religion, it was a profound philosophical system that shaped the worldview, ethics, and daily lives of the Persians. You wouldn't find grand cathedrals or elaborate temple complexes as you might in other ancient cultures. Its sacred spaces were often simpler, emphasizing elements at its core. Zoroastrianism is an ancient monotheistic religion founded by the prophet Zarathustra, Zoroaster, likely sometime between 1500 and 1000 BCE, though historians still debate his precise dates. Its central tenet is the cosmic struggle between two opposing forces, Ahura Mazda Wise Lord, representing truth, order, light, and creativity, and Angra Mainyu, evil spirit or destructive spirit, representing falsehood, disorder, darkness, and destruction. You wouldn't be dealing with a pantheon of squabbling gods. This was a clear, dualistic battle for the soul of the universe, and your actions mattered. Zoroastrianism is highly ethical, emphasizing the importance of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Humata, hukta, huvlashta, you were expected to choose the path of Asha truth and order over druge, falsehood and disorder in your daily life. This wasn't about blind obedience, but about conscious moral choice, a concept that feels surprisingly modern in its emphasis on individual responsibility. Imagine every decision you make being a small battle in this cosmic struggle, quite a motivational boost, or perhaps just another thing to gently worry about before drifting off. Unlike many ancient religions that focused on elaborate rituals and sacrifices to appease deities, Zoroastrian worship was often simpler, focusing on natural elements, particularly fire. Fire was considered sacred, a symbol of Ahura Mazda's light, wisdom, and purity. You wouldn't be worshipping the fire itself, but what it represented, the divine spark. Fire temples, therefore, were not ornate structures, but rather places where sacred flames were kept burning, attended by priests. You might enter a quiet, dimly lit chamber, feeling the warmth of the perpetual flame and inhaling the scent of sandalwood or frankincense. The concept of purity was also central. This extended not just to spiritual purity, but also ritual and physical cleanliness. Certain elements, like earth and water, were considered sacred and not to be defiled by burial or cremation of the dead. This led to the unique Zoroastrian practice of sky burial, where the deceased were placed in towers of silenced dukmas to be exposed to the elements and birds of prey. Imagine the birds circling, a very different kind of final journey than you're familiar with. This practice ensured that the earth and fire remained undefiled, a respectful return of the body to the natural world. Zoroastrianism also held beliefs about an afterlife, including a final judgment where each soul would cross the Chinvet bridge, the bridge of the separator. For the righteous, it would widen, leading to the house of song. For the wicked, it would narrow, leading to the house of lies. This belief provided a moral framework and a sense of cosmic justice. You wouldn't be wondering what happens after you log off for good. You'd have a clear spiritual roadmap. The faith also influenced royal ideology. Persian kings, like Cyrus the Great and Darius I, saw themselves as chosen by Ahura Mazda to uphold order and truth in the world. Their inscriptions often invoke Ahura Mazda and emphasize their commitment to justice and righteousness, reinforcing the idea that the empire itself was divinely ordained. This wasn't just political rhetoric. It was deeply embedded in their belief system. While Zoroastrianism remains a living religion today, its influence on ancient Persia was profound, shaping everything from legal codes to personal ethics. It instilled a sense of purpose, a clear moral compass, and a deep respect for the natural world. It's a complex and fascinating spiritual journey, and perhaps one that offers a quiet reflection on the enduring human search for meaning, even as you drift into dreams. Having explored the spiritual landscape, let's now consider the practical framework that held Persian society together, laws and justice. In an empire of such immense size and diversity, a consistent and fair legal system was paramount for maintaining order and preventing chaos. You wouldn't be calling 911. Justice was dispensed through a more ancient and sometimes surprisingly nuanced system. At the apex of the legal system was the great king himself, considered the ultimate source of justice. His word was law, but he was also expected to rule justly, upholding the divine order of Ahura Mazda. Royal decrees and edicts, often inscribed on clay tablets or papyrus in various languages, would be disseminated throughout the empire. This meant that, theoretically, justice was accessible and consistent from Babylon to Bactria. You might find yourself listening intently as a royal decree is read aloud in the town square, understanding its direct impact on your daily life. Below the king, there was a hierarchy of officials and judges. In each satrapy province, the governor would be responsible for administering justice, often with the help of local judges and legal experts. This allowed for a degree of local custom and tradition to be integrated into the broader imperial legal framework, making the system more adaptable. Imagine a local council resolving disputes, with the ultimate authority resting with the distant king. Historians still argue about the precise balance between imperial law and local customary law in different regions of the empire. The Persian legal system was characterized by its emphasis on truthfulness and fairness, reflecting principles. Perjury was considered a grave offense, and judges were expected to be incorruptible. There was a strong belief that justice should prevail, aligning with the cosmic order of Asha. This meant that, in theory, even the humblest subject could seek redress if they felt wronged. You wouldn't be filing a lawsuit online. You'd be presenting your case before an official, hoping for a just outcome. Punishments could be severe, reflecting the harsh realities of the ancient world. For serious crimes like treason, rebellion, or murder, the death penalty was common, sometimes carried out in gruesome ways, though often less so than in some other contemporary empires. For lesser offenses, punishments might include fines, imprisonment, or corporal punishment. However, Persian law also emphasized restitution and compensation, particularly for property crimes. If you stole a neighbor's goat, you might have to return it and pay a fine, rather than simply losing a hand. It's a pragmatic approach, focusing on restoring order. A unique feature of the Persian legal system was the institution of the royal judges. These were high-ranking officials specifically appointed by the king to ensure that justice was administered fairly throughout the empire. They would travel to different regions, hearing appeals and investigating complaints against local officials. Their presence was a check on the power of the satraps and a direct link to the king's justice. Imagine one of these formidable judges arriving in your town, a symbol of the king's long arm of justice reaching even to the most remote corners. You'd certainly want to make sure your affairs were in order. Quirky tidbit: there are accounts of judges being executed for taking bribes, emphasizing the king's commitment to an uncorrupted judiciary. So, no get-out-of-jail-free cards here if you were a crooked judge. The legal system was not just about punishment. It was also about maintaining social order, protecting property, and resolving disputes peacefully. Contracts, agreements, and property ownership were all protected by law, facilitating trade and economic stability across the vast empire. You might find yourself pondering the role of law in society, even in your half-asleep state. The ancient Persians understood that a stable empire required not just military might, but also a credible and accessible system of justice. It was a complex blend of royal authority, local customs, and ethical principles, all designed to ensure that the wheel of empire turned smoothly, offering a quiet assurance that, for the most part, order prevailed. From the stern hand of justice, let's glide into the vibrant arteries of the Persian Empire, trade and commerce. This vast domain wasn't just held together by military might and legal codes, but by a complex web of exchange connecting distant lands and fostering a remarkable flow of goods, ideas, and cultures. You wouldn't be ordering online, but the scale of their ancient supply chain was truly impressive. At the heart of Persian trade was the legendary Royal Road. This wasn't just a dusty track. It was a carefully maintained network of roads spanning thousands of kilometers, designed for rapid communication and efficient movement of goods and armies. Imagine yourself on this ancient highway, seeing not just dusty travelers, but caravans laden with precious commodities, pack animals, donkeys, camels, and mules, carrying everything from exotic spices and perfumes to fine textiles and rare metals. You might even spot a royal messenger galloping past, underscoring the road's strategic importance. Historians still argue about the precise original purpose of the Royal Road, whether primarily for communication or trade, but its commercial impact was undeniable. The Persian Empire's sheer size meant it encompassed incredibly diverse resources. From the rich agricultural lands of Mesopotamia and Egypt came grains, dates, and papyrus. From the Iranian plateau, you'd find minerals like gold, silver, copper, and iron, essential for coinage and craftsmanship. Imagine the glint of newly minted silver coins, uniform in weight and design, facilitating transactions across vast distances. This was a sophisticated monetary system for its time, making trade far easier than bartering. But it wasn't just raw materials. The Persians were also skilled in craftsmanship, and their finished goods were highly prized. Think of the intricate Persian carpets, their dyes vibrant and their patterns telling ancient stories, sought after by elites across the known world. Fine pottery, metalwork, and jewelry also found their way to distant markets. You might imagine a bustling market in Babylon, filled with traders speaking a cacophony of languages, all eager to buy and sell. The air would be thick with the scent of exotic spices, cinnamon from Ceylon, frankincense from Arabia, saffron from their own lands, a true sensory overload that would make your local supermarket seem rather dull. The Persian system of tribute also played a significant role in their economy and trade. While ostensibly a form of taxation, much of the tribute paid by conquered regions came in the form of goods and resources rather than just currency. This flow of diverse goods into the imperial centers like Susa and Persepolis effectively acted as a vast, centrally managed import system, which could then be redistributed or traded further. It's a bit like a highly organized ancient distribution network, ensuring a steady supply of exotic and necessary items for the royal court, and the broader empire trade extended beyond the empire's borders. To the east, the Persian Empire was a key player in the early silk routes, facilitating the movement of precious silk from China, which would eventually make its way to the Mediterranean. To the west, they traded with Greek city-states, Phoenicians, and Egyptians, exchanging their goods for timber, olive oil, and other Mediterranean products. This long-distance trade fostered cultural exchange alongside economic activity. You might imagine a Phoenician ship docking at a Persian-controlled port, unloading its wares and taking on Persian goods, bridging vast distances and diverse cultures. The empire's stability and consistent legal system, remember our previous discussion, also made it an attractive and secure place for merchants to operate. The king's peace, the Pax Persica, ensured that goods could travel safely across vast distances, encouraging greater commercial activity. You wouldn't have to worry about pirates on the royal road. Well, not often, anyway. This secure environment encouraged economic growth and innovation. It's a testament to how even in ancient times, robust infrastructure and reliable governance were crucial for a thriving economy. So, as you drift off, imagine the rhythmic swaying of countless caravans, carrying the wealth of the ancient world across sprawling landscapes, connecting people and cultures in a silent, enduring dance of commerce. From the bustling trade routes, let's now turn our gaze to something enduring and beautiful: Persian art and architecture. This wasn't merely decorative. It was a powerful statement of imperial might, religious devotion, and aesthetic sophistication, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire. You wouldn't find abstract expressionism here. Persian art was grand, harmonious, and deeply symbolic. The most iconic examples of Achaemenid Persian architecture are the monumental palaces at Persepolis, Susa, and Pasargadae. These weren't built just for residence. They were ceremonial centers, designed to awe and impress. Imagine colossal stone platforms rising majestically from the plain, supporting vast halls adorned with towering columns. The Upper Dana Hall at Persepolis, with its 72 columns, each soaring over 60 feet high, is a prime example. You'd crane your neck, feeling dwarfed by the sheer scale, wondering how such structures could have been erected without modern cranes. It's a bit like seeing a skyscraper, but knowing it was built with human muscle and ingenuity alone. Historians still argue about the precise techniques used to lift these massive stone blocks. One of the most striking features of Persian architecture is the relief sculpture that adorns the staircases and walls of these palaces. At Persepolis, you'd walk along grand stairways lined with hundreds of figures carved in exquisite detail, solemn processions of tribute bearers from every corner of the empire, guards in their distinct uniforms, and officials in ceremonial attire. Each figure is rendered with meticulous precision, capturing the textures of their clothing and the expressions on their faces. This wasn't just decoration, it was visual propaganda, showcasing the vast diversity and unity of the Persian Empire under the great king. You might find yourself slowly tracing the contours of a lion or admiring the delicate folds of a robe, utterly captivated by the artistry. Animal motifs are prevalent in Persian art, symbolizing strength, power, and fertility. You'd see magnificent winged bulls with human heads, lamassu, guarding gateways, often carved in high relief. Lions attacking bulls, a recurring motif, represented the triumph of light over darkness, or the king's power over chaos. Eagles, horses, and various mythical creatures also featured prominently, adding a sense of majesty and wonder. Imagine the skilled sculptors working for years, patiently bringing these powerful figures to life from solid stone. While stone was used for monumental structures, mud brick and glazed brick were also vital, especially for palaces in warmer regions like Susa. Here, you'd find stunning friezes made of brightly colored glazed bricks, depicting archers, perhaps the immortals, lions, and griffins. Imagine vibrant blues, yellows, and greens shimmering in the sunlight, bringing life and color to palace walls. This technique allowed for a fluidity of design and color that stone could not always achieve. It's like a giant, ancient mosaic, but made of bricks, each piece carefully placed to form a grand picture. Persian art was also highly eclectic, absorbing influences from the diverse cultures within its empire. You can spot Mesopotamian, Egyptian, Greek, and Eurasian elements subtly integrated into a distinctively Persian style. This wasn't plagiarism, it was cultural synthesis, a testament to the empire's openness and its ability to blend different traditions into a unique artistic expression. You might notice a subtle Egyptian influence in a certain pose, or a Mesopotamian pattern in a textile design, making you feel like you're on a grand cultural scavenger hunt beyond the grand palaces. Art permeated daily life, from finely crafted pottery and metalwork to intricate jewelry adorned with precious stones. You'd see elegant gold bracelets featuring lion heads, or silver bowls with stylized floral patterns. Even seals, used for official documents and personal identification, were miniature works of art, often depicting scenes of hunting or mythical beings. This attention to beauty, even in everyday objects, speaks volumes about Persian aesthetics. The enduring legacy of Persian art and architecture is its timeless appeal. The harmony of its forms, the precision of its craftsmanship, and the power of its symbolism continue to captivate. As you let your mind wander through these ancient designs, you might feel a quiet sense of the enduring human desire to create beauty, to leave a lasting mark, and to communicate power and grace through stone and color. A soothing thought indeed. Having admired the enduring beauty of Persian art and architecture, let's pivot to a matter of survival and well-being, medicine and healing in ancient Persia. This wasn't a world of gleaming hospitals and advanced diagnostics, but rather one reliant on centuries of accumulated knowledge, observation, and a surprising blend of practical remedies and spiritual beliefs. You wouldn't be calling your doctor. You'd be seeking out a healer, perhaps a priest-physician. Persian medicine, particularly in the later Achaemenid period, benefited immensely from the empire's vast reach. Knowledge flowed in from Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, and even Greece, leading to a rich synthesis of medical practices. This cultural exchange meant that Persian healers had a wider array of theories and treatments at their disposal than many of their contemporaries. Imagine physicians debating treatments, drawing on different traditions, a surprisingly open-minded approach for an ancient empire. Historians still argue about the exact degree to which Persian medicine influenced or was influenced by Greek medical traditions. Particularly Hippocratic thought, at the heart of Persian medical practice, was a holistic approach, often linking physical health with spiritual and mental well-being. This was deeply rooted in Zoroastrianism, where illness was sometimes seen as a manifestation of the forces of Angra, the evil spirit, and healing involved not just physical remedies, but also rituals and prayers to Ahura Mazda. You might find a healer prescribing both an herbal concoction and a specific prayer or purification ritual to drive out the perceived source of affliction. It's a bit like getting a prescription for a pill and a mindfulness exercise, but with more ancient incantations. The Persians had a sophisticated understanding of herbal medicine. They utilized a wide variety of plants, many native to the region, for their medicinal properties. Imagine healers meticulously grinding herbs and roots, preparing poultices, tinctures, and infusions. Opium poppies, cannabis, and various other plants were known for their pain-relieving or sedative qualities, used to alleviate suffering. You wouldn't be popping an ibuprofen. You'd be sipping a brewed herbal remedy, perhaps with a distinctly earthy flavor beyond herbs. Various other treatments were employed. Diet and hygiene were considered crucial for maintaining health. They understood the importance of clean water and proper food preparation, especially for preventing widespread illness. Remember our discussions about their sophisticated water management. This was not just for agriculture, it was also vital for public health. Surgical procedures, though rudimentary by modern standards, were also performed for injuries and some ailments. Accounts suggest they could set bones, treat wounds, and even perform basic trepanation, drilling holes in the skull, though you'd probably rather not volunteer for that last one. The concept of a physician was multifaceted. You might encounter priest-physicians who combined religious healing with practical medical knowledge, or secular practitioners who focused solely on physical ailments. There were also specialists, perhaps treating specific conditions like eye diseases or dental issues. The famous Greek physician Democedes, for example, served at the court of Darius I, demonstrating the king's willingness to employ foreign medical expertise. This openness to external knowledge was a distinctive feature. Quirky tidbit. Some ancient texts suggest that Persian physicians were paid according to the social status of their patient and the difficulty of the illness. So, if you were a king with a complex ailment, your doctor was likely getting a substantial fee. No surprise billing here, probably. The emphasis on careful observation and record keeping also played a role in the accumulation of medical knowledge over generations. Prescriptions and treatments were likely passed down and refined, forming a growing body of medical lore. Ultimately, ancient Persian medicine was a blend of practical, empirical knowledge, inherited traditions, and spiritual beliefs. It reflects a world where healing was often a collaborative effort between patient, healer, and the divine. While it lacked the scientific understanding of modern medicine, it was a system built on centuries of trial and error, offering comfort and care in a world where illness could strike swiftly and severely. As you drift off, perhaps you can appreciate the quiet dedication of these ancient healers, working to bring solace in a world far removed from your own germ-free bubble. With our health in mind, let's consider what ancient Persians did when the day's work was done and duties were fulfilled. Entertainment and leisure. This wasn't a society glued to glowing screens. Their amusements were often social, physical, and deeply connected to their culture and environment. You wouldn't be binging a TV series. You'd be engaging in activities that built community and honed skills for the elite. Hunting was a preeminent form of leisure and a symbol of royal power and prowess. Imagine riding horseback across vast hunting grounds, perhaps specially enclosed paradise parks, chasing lions, wild boars, or deer with bow and arrow or spear. This wasn't just a sport. It was a way for the king and nobles to demonstrate their courage, skill, and ability to protect their realm from dangerous beasts. It's a bit like an extreme sport mixed with a royal duty, far more exhilarating than your average gym workout. Historians still argue about the frequency and ethical implications of royal hunts, but their symbolic importance is undeniable. Banquets and feasts, which we briefly touched upon, were also major forms of entertainment. These weren't just about food. They were elaborate social occasions where guests reclined, conversed, enjoyed music, dance, and storytelling. Imagine the soft sounds of a lute or harp, the rhythmic sway of dancers, and the captivating voice of a bard recounting ancient myths or heroic deeds. This was live entertainment at its finest, fostering camaraderie and displaying wealth and generosity. You wouldn't be scrolling through TikTok. You'd be engaged in genuine live interaction and performance. Board games were popular across all social strata. You might find yourself huddled over a game board, perhaps similar to modern backgammon or senate, strategizing your moves with friends or family. These games provided intellectual stimulation and a chance for friendly competition, far removed from the physical demands of daily labor. Even if you didn't have much, a simple board carved into the dirt with pebbles for pieces could provide. Hours of amusement. Music and dance were integral to Persian culture, enjoyed both in formal settings and casual gatherings. Instruments like various types of lutes, harps, and flutes would accompany singers or dancers. Imagine the rhythmic clapping and the melodic tunes filling the air, perhaps a soothing backdrop to an evening gathering. This wasn't just background noise. It was an active part of their cultural expression, often imbued with deep emotional and spiritual significance. For the common people, leisure might involve simpler pleasures. Storytelling around a fire, sharing news and gossip, or playing simple outdoor games would be common. Children would engage in games similar to what children play today, running, jumping, and chasing, using their imaginations to create fun with whatever was at hand. There were no video games or theme parks, but there was boundless human creativity. You might even find yourself participating in a local festival, celebrating a harvest or a religious observance, with singing, dancing, and communal feasting. These events provided crucial breaks from routine and reinforced community bonds. Horse riding was not just a military skill, but also a recreational activity, especially for those who could afford horses. Imagine the exhilaration of galloping across an open plain, the wind in your hair, a feeling of freedom and mastery. This love for horses permeated Persian culture, from their cavalry to their leisurely pursuits. You wouldn't be riding a bicycle. You'd be riding a magnificent steed, a very different kind of journey. Quirky tidbit: some historical accounts suggest that the Persians enjoyed trick riding and acrobatic displays on horseback as a form of entertainment, showcasing their incredible horsemanship. So, imagine a sort of ancient Persian rodeo, but with more finesse and less cowboy hats. Ultimately, ancient Persian entertainment and leisure were about engagement, engaging with nature, with fellow humans, and with the rich tapestry of their culture. It was about shared experiences, physical activity, and the simple joys of life. As you drift off, perhaps you can appreciate the timeless human need for play and relaxation. A quiet reminder that even in ancient times, everyone needed a break from the grind. Having explored the leisurely pursuits, let's consider how people, goods, and ideas moved across the colossal Achaemenid Empire. Transportation and travel. This wasn't a world of smooth highways and rapid air travel. Journeys were long, arduous, and full of unique challenges, but the Persians developed ingenious systems to facilitate them. You wouldn't be hailing a taxi. You'd be saddling a beast of burden, or preparing for a long march. At the heart of the empire's transportation network was the already mentioned Royal Road. This wasn't just a simple path. It was a testament to ancient engineering, a network of roads stretching over 2,500 kilometers from Susa to Sardis. Imagine yourself traversing this well-maintained route, feeling the compacted earth beneath your feet or the hooves of your animal. Along its length, there were regularly spaced rest stations, caravanserais, complete with stables, provisions, and fresh horses, allowing for remarkably swift travel for messengers. You could cover vast distances surprisingly quickly, making it a true marvel of ancient infrastructure. Historians still argue about the exact speed at which royal messages could travel, but estimates suggest an incredible pace for the time. For personal travel, the most common mode was by foot. Most ordinary. People walked wherever they needed to go, whether to a neighboring village or a local market. Imagine the simple rhythm of walking, the dust on your sandals, and the slow unfolding of the landscape around you. For longer distances, or if you had goods to transport, pack animals were essential. Donkeys, mules, and most notably, camels. Especially the sturdy Bactrian camels were the workhorses of the ancient world. Their ability to carry heavy loads over long distances with minimal water made them indispensable for caravans. You might find yourself walking beside a camel train, listening to the gentle jingle of their bells, a timeless sound of ancient commerce. Horses were primarily used for military purposes and for rapid communication, as well as for hunting and sport among the elite. Imagine the thrill of riding a finely bred Nisaean horse, renowned for its strength and speed. This was not casual riding. It was a skill honed from childhood, demonstrating status and mastery. You wouldn't be riding a bicycle. You'd be riding a powerful animal, feeling its muscles ripple beneath you. A very different kind of locomotion for water transport. Rivers and canals played a crucial role in certain regions, especially in Mesopotamia and Egypt. The Persians also invested in building or improving canals to connect major waterways, facilitating the movement of bulk goods. Imagine barges slowly drifting down a canal, laden with grain or timber, a more sedate but equally vital form of transport. They even had rudimentary naval fleets, particularly in the Mediterranean, for trade and military expeditions, employing Phoenician and Greek sailors. You might find yourself on a simple wooden boat, feeling the sway of the water and the gentle creak of the planks. Travel in ancient Persia was rarely a solo endeavor. For safety, especially on long routes, people often traveled in caravans. These groups would band together, offering mutual protection against bandits and the harshness of the environment. Imagine the shared camaraderie on such a journey, swapping stories around a campfire under the vast desert sky, a kind of ancient road trip without the Spotify playlist. This communal aspect of travel was essential for survival and also for building connections between different regions. Roadside inns or simple shelters would provide a place to rest and find provisions, much like modern rest stops, but far more rustic. Preparing for a journey involved careful planning, packing enough water, dried food, and perhaps a few simple tools. You wouldn't be relying on GPS. You'd be relying on experienced guides and the wisdom passed down through generations about the safest routes and water sources. Ultimately, transportation and travel in ancient Persia was slow, demanding, but remarkably efficient for their time. They shaped the empire, connecting its diverse peoples and allowing for the flow of resources and ideas that fueled its power and prosperity. As you drift into sleep, imagine the rhythmic clip-clop of hooves on an ancient road, carrying you gently through the vastness of history. Having traversed the royal road, let's now turn our gaze to a sensitive but essential aspect of ancient societies: slavery and freedom. In ancient Persia, as in most empires of the time, the lines between freedom and various forms of servitude were complex and often blurred. You wouldn't find a clear-cut abolitionist movement. This was a deeply ingrained part of their economic and social fabric. It's important to understand that slavery in ancient Persia wasn't a monolithic concept. There were various forms of unfree labor, ranging from chattel slavery, where individuals were treated as property, to debt bondage and forms of penal servitude. The majority of individuals were, of course, free, but for a significant portion of the population, life was lived under some degree of constraint. Historians still argue about the exact proportion of slaves in the Achaemenid Empire, with estimates varying widely based on archaeological and textual evidence. One of the primary sources of unfree labor was war captivity. When the Persians conquered new territories, prisoners of war were often brought back and put to work on imperial projects, in private households, or on agricultural estates. Imagine being captured in battle and suddenly finding yourself transported hundreds of miles to a new land, tasked with labor for your new masters. This was a harsh reality of ancient conquest. Debt bondage was another common way people could fall into servitude. If a free person accumulated debts they couldn't repay, they might be forced to work for their creditor until the debt was cleared. This could be a temporary arrangement, but it often led to long periods of servitude, sometimes even extending to family members. It's a bit like a very unforgiving loan agreement, where your labor is the collateral. You wouldn't be declaring bankruptcy, you'd be working off your obligations, often under difficult conditions. Then there were those born into servitude. If your parents were unfree, you would likely inherit that status. However, unlike some other ancient societies, there appears to have been more fluidity in Persia. Slaves could sometimes earn their freedom, particularly through loyal service, or by accumulating enough resources to buy their emancipation. They could also own property, engage in business, and even marry free individuals. This meant that while life as an unfree person was undoubtedly hard, there was sometimes a path towards greater autonomy. You wouldn't be stuck forever. There was a glimmer of hope. Where would you find these unfree laborers? They were employed in virtually every sector of the economy. Many worked on royal building projects at places like Persepolis and Susa, hauling massive stones, carving reliefs, and performing countless hours of manual labor under the supervision of overseers. Imagine the sweat and toil involved in constructing those colossal palaces. Others worked in agriculture, tending fields, vineyards, and olive groves for wealthy landowners. You might find them in mines, extracting precious metals, or in workshops, assisting skilled artisans. In wealthier households, domestic slaves performed a variety of tasks, from cooking and cleaning to caring for children and managing household affairs. The treatment of unfree laborers varied widely, depending on their masters and their specific roles. Some were undoubtedly subjected to harsh conditions and cruelty, while others, particularly those in skilled positions or trusted domestic roles, might have experienced relatively better treatment, perhaps even forming close bonds with their owners. The degree of autonomy and the severity of labor conditions could differ significantly. Quirky tidbit: there are administrative tablets from Persepolis that record rations given to various workers, including unfree laborers, indicating a structured system of provisions and, to some extent, recognition of their existence as individuals, even if they weren't fully free. So, even in servitude, there was a certain level of bureaucratic oversight, making you wonder if they also had to fill out ancient timesheets. Ultimately, the institution of unfree labor was a complex and integral part of the Achaemenid Persian Empire's economy and social structure. It provided the immense labor force required for monumental projects and agricultural output, contributing significantly to the empire's wealth and power. It's a somber but important reflection on the diverse human experiences within this vast ancient world, reminding you of the often unseen hands that built its grandeur. After contemplating the sometimes stark realities of labor, let's shift our focus to a fascinating and often misunderstood aspect of ancient Persian society: women's roles. You might imagine a strictly confined existence, but the reality for women in the Achaemenid Empire was surprisingly varied, defying simple stereotypes and revealing a greater degree of agency and influence than often assumed. You wouldn't find them leading armies, but their contributions were vital. For the majority of women in ancient Persia, life revolved around the household and family, which, as we discussed, was the fundamental unit of society. Women were primarily responsible for managing the domestic sphere, raising children, preparing food, and often producing textiles, which were crucial for family clothing and household goods. Imagine the rhythmic sound of a loom as women skillfully wove intricate patterns into wool and linen. This wasn't just domestic drudgery. It was essential economic production, contributing directly to the family's wealth and well-being. Their role as managers of the household economy gave them significant practical authority within their own domains. However, the evidence suggests that women's activities extended beyond the immediate home. Administrative tablets from Persepolis, for example, reveal that women, including royal women and common laborers, participated in the workforce outside the home. They received wages, sometimes in silver and sometimes in rations, for various types of labor. You might find women working in textile workshops, processing agricultural produce, or even supervising groups of other laborers. This indicates a much more active and visible economic role for women than in some other ancient societies. Imagine women walking to work in the morning, just as men did, contributing to the broader economy of the empire. Historians still argue about the precise social implications of these administrative records, but they undeniably show women's active involvement in the economy. Royal women, in particular, held considerable power and influence. Queens, princesses, and noble women were not merely decorative figures. They could own vast estates, command their own administrative staff, issue orders, and even participate in political intrigues at court. They had significant economic resources at their disposal, and used them to patronize art, religious institutions, and even military campaigns. Imagine a powerful queen, not on a throne, but managing her vast properties, making crucial decisions that affected hundreds, if not thousands, of people. This was a far cry from a life of passive confinement, while modesty was valued particularly. For elite women, and some form of veiling or head covering was common. This was not necessarily a universal practice of strict seclusion. The degree of seclusion varied based on social class, region, and specific circumstances. Women were certainly present in public life, particularly in markets and at festivals. You wouldn't see them entirely hidden away. They were active participants in the daily rhythms of society, albeit often within culturally defined boundaries. Religious life was also important for women. As we discussed with Zoroastrianism, women participated in religious rituals and could hold positions of religious authority. In some cults, female deities or figures were revered, and women played roles in their worship. This provided another avenue for public participation and influence. You might find women actively leading certain ceremonies, their voices joining. In ancient prayers, quirky tidbit, some tablets even mention pregnant women receiving higher rations, indicating a recognition of their specific needs and value to the community. So, ancient Persia had a rudimentary form of maternity benefits, long before modern states even dreamed of such a thing. It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes about cultural values. Ultimately, the roles of women in ancient Persia were diverse and dynamic. While patriarchal structures certainly existed, women were not simply confined to the domestic sphere. They were active participants in the economy, held significant influence in their households, and, particularly among the elite, could wield considerable power and wealth. It's a nuanced picture, challenging simplistic notions of ancient gender roles and revealing a society where women played vital and often surprising parts, adding another layer of quiet complexity to your understanding of this ancient world. From the diverse lives of Persian women, let's now appreciate one of the true engineering marvels that bound the Achaemenid Empire together, the royal roads and messaging system. This wasn't just a simple path, but a sophisticated network, designed for rapid communication and logistical efficiency, allowing the great king's word to travel swiftly across his vast domain. You wouldn't be sending an email, you'd be relying on incredibly fast ancient postal service. We briefly touched on the royal road when discussing trade, but its primary purpose was actually for royal communication. Imagine a vast network of well-maintained highways stretching thousands of kilometers, connecting the major administrative centers like Susa, Persepolis, and Sardis. These roads were remarkably engineered for their time, often paved in crucial sections and equipped with bridges over rivers. You'd feel the evenness of the path beneath your feet, a testament to the immense labor invested in its construction and upkeep. Historians still argue whether the entire length of the royal road was paved, or only key segments, but its functionality was undeniable. The genius of the system lay in the establishment of regularly spaced post stations known as piers. Along the road, these stations, typically located every 20 to 30 kilometers, about a day's march, served as crucial hubs. Each station maintained fresh horses and a corps of dedicated royal messengers. Imagine galloping into a station, exhausted from your ride, and seeing a fresh horse already saddled and waiting, ready to take the urgent message to the next station. This system allowed for astonishingly rapid transmission of news, orders, and intelligence. Herodotus famously described this system, saying, "Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds." A phrase that still echoes today. This rapid communication was absolutely vital for governing such a sprawling empire. The great king in Susa could issue an order, and within days or weeks, it could reach the furthest corners of his domain. Imagine the intelligence flowing back to him. Reports from satraps, news of rebellions, updates on border skirmishes, allowing him to make timely decisions. This wasn't just about sending letters. It was about maintaining control, projecting authority, and reacting quickly to events across 3 continents. You wouldn't be checking your news feed. You'd be waiting for the arrival of a sweating, dust-caked messenger, carrying critical information. The messengers themselves were highly trained and disciplined. They were chosen for their endurance, riding skills, and reliability. Their lives were undoubtedly tough, spending countless hours in the saddle, braving the elements and potential dangers like bandits. But their role was immensely important, carrying the very words of the king. You might imagine them riding day and night, changing horses at each station, a blur of motion across the ancient landscape. Beyond official communications, the royal road also facilitated the movement of military forces, tribute, and trade, as we discussed earlier. It was a multi-purpose artery that pumped lifeblood throughout the empire. The existence of inns and caravanserais along the route, offering food and shelter, made travel safer and more manageable for all. It truly was a comprehensive infrastructure project, far ahead of its time. Quirky tidbit: there's a theory that the system of royal messengers was so effective that it could deliver a message from Sardis, in modern-day Turkey, to Susa in modern-day Iran in about 7 days. That's an average speed of over 200 kilometers per day, which is absolutely astounding for ancient times, and would put many modern postal services to shame, assuming no traffic jams of camels. Ultimately, the royal road and its associated messaging system were central to the administrative genius of the Achaemenid Empire. They were not just physical pathways, but vital conduits of power and information, allowing the great king to remain truly great across such an immense territory. As you drift off, imagine the quiet thud of hooves receding into the distance, carrying whispers of history across vast, ancient lands. From the swift flow of information along the royal road, let's now consider another remarkable aspect of Persian ingenuity, one that literally brought life to the arid landscape: water management. In a region often characterized by its dryness, the ability to harness and distribute water was not just a convenience, but a profound act of survival, supporting vast populations and lush gardens. You wouldn't be turning on a tap. You'd be marveling at ancient hydraulic engineering, the most iconic and ingenious system of water management in ancient Persia was the qanot or karez. These were sophisticated underground aqueducts, essentially gently sloping tunnels dug into hillsides, designed to tap into groundwater sources and channel water to distant plains, villages, and cities. Imagine the immense human effort involved, excavating hundreds of meters, sometimes kilometers, of underground tunnels, often with vertical access shafts like wells dug at intervals to remove spoil and provide ventilation. It's like building an underground river entirely by hand, just to get water where it's needed. Historians still argue about the precise origins of qanots, but they reached their peak of sophistication and widespread use under the Achaemenids. The genius of the qanot system lay in its simplicity and sustainability. Once constructed, gravity did all the work, delivering a continuous supply of cool, clean water without the need for pumps or complex machinery. This meant less water loss from evaporation in the scorching sun and a more reliable supply than surface rivers or rainfall. You'd feel the cool air rising from the qanot shafts, a refreshing contrast to the outside heat, and hear the gentle murmur of unseen water flowing beneath the earth. It's a wonderfully tranquil thought, this silent, subterranean river bringing life to the surface. Qanots were essential for agriculture, transforming barren land into fertile fields capable of growing wheat, barley, grapes, and various fruits. Without them, many of the empire's most productive agricultural regions simply would not have existed. Imagine seeing vibrant green fields stretching out in the middle of an otherwise dry landscape, all thanks to the unseen flow of a qanot. They also supplied water for drinking and domestic use in towns and cities, as well as for the exquisite Persian gardens we discussed earlier. Remember those paradise gardens? They were only possible because of these elaborate underground water systems beyond qanots. The Persians also employed other water management techniques. They built dams to control river flow and create reservoirs, and constructed elaborate canal networks to distribute water from rivers to agricultural lands. In regions like Mesopotamia and Egypt, already rich in river systems, the Persians maintained and improved existing irrigation infrastructure, recognizing its vital importance to the local economy and imperial revenue. You might see a vast irrigation ditch, bringing water from a major river to countless smaller fields, a network of life-giving arteries. Water ownership and distribution were carefully regulated, often by local authorities under imperial oversight. Laws and customs governed access to water, ensuring equitable distribution and preventing disputes. This sophisticated management highlights the value placed on this precious resource and the administrative capacity of the empire. You wouldn't be leaving your garden hose running. You'd be part of a meticulous system designed to conserve every precious drop. Quirky tidbit: some qanots were so long that they stretched for tens of kilometers, with shafts dug at precise intervals, requiring incredibly accurate surveying skills that would impress even modern engineers. Imagine ancient workers digging straight for miles, completely underground, relying on slope and intuition. It truly is a testament to their engineering prowess. In essence, Persian water management systems, especially qanots, were not just engineering feats, but symbols of their harmonious relationship with the land and their mastery over its challenges. They allowed civilization to flourish in otherwise inhospitable environments, creating prosperity and beauty. As you drift off to sleep, imagine the quiet, constant flow of water deep beneath the earth, a soothing reminder of ingenuity and sustained life in the ancient world. With the life-giving water systems now understood, let's turn our attention to the sustenance they provided, agriculture and crops. The Achaemenid Empire was an agrarian powerhouse, feeding millions across vast and diverse landscapes. This wasn't a world of mass-produced monoculture farming. It was a mosaic of traditional methods, yielding a surprising variety of foodstuffs. You wouldn't be heading to a supermarket. You'd be directly connected to the Earth's bounty, the Fertile Crescent regions, particularly Mesopotamia and Egypt, under Persian control, were the breadbaskets of the empire. Here, vast quantities of wheat and barley were cultivated, forming the staple diet for the majority of the population. Imagine endless fields of golden grain swaying in the wind, stretching as far as the eye can see, a testament to meticulous planning and immense labor. The annual cycles of plowing, sowing, and harvesting dictated the rhythm of life for countless communities. Historians still argue about the exact yields per acre in different regions, but they were certainly impressive for ancient technology beyond grains. A rich variety of pulses and vegetables formed a crucial part of the Persian diet. Lentils, chickpeas, beans, and peas provided essential protein and nutrients, often prepared in stews or mashes. Imagine hearty meals of these legumes, seasoned with fragrant herbs. Gardens, both communal and private, would yield a diverse array of vegetables like onions, garlic, leeks, cucumbers, melons, and various greens. These were often grown in terraced plots or small, irrigated patches, showing a deep understanding of local microclimates. Fruit cultivation was also highly developed and celebrated. Dates were incredibly important, especially in the warmer southern regions, providing sweetness, energy, and a versatile ingredient for various dishes. Figs, pomegranates, apples, quinces, and grapes were grown in orchards and vineyards, often benefiting from the careful irrigation provided by canals. Imagine walking through an orchard, picking plump, sun-ripened fruit directly from the branch. A truly delightful experience. The cultivation of grapes, of course, also supported the production of wine, a popular beverage among the elite. The Persians were also experts in horticulture, growing not just food but also plants for their medicinal properties, dyes, and fragrances. Many aromatic herbs and spices that you recognize today, like saffron, cumin, and coriander, were cultivated and widely used in their cuisine. Imagine the rich, tantalizing aromas wafting from ancient kitchens as these spices were ground and mixed into dishes. They also cultivated plants for their fibers, particularly flax for linen and cotton in some warmer regions. Supporting the empire's vibrant textile industry, agricultural techniques were relatively basic but effective for their time. Plowing was done with simple wooden plows, often pulled by oxen. Irrigation, as we discussed, was crucial, ranging from large-scale canals to individual shadoofs water-lifting devices, used by farmers to bring water to their plots. Crop rotation and fallow periods were likely understood and practiced to maintain soil fertility, reflecting centuries of accumulated agricultural wisdom. You wouldn't be seeing giant combines. You'd be witnessing human and animal labor, intimately connected to the earth. Beyond cultivated crops, livestock played an important role. Sheep, goats, and cattle provided meat, milk, wool, and hides. Horses were bred for cavalry, and donkeys and mules for transport. You might see shepherds guiding their flocks across open pastures, a timeless scene of pastoral life. Historians still debate the extent to which agricultural surplus contributed to the empire's ability to maintain its vast army and bureaucracy, but it was undoubtedly foundational. The careful management of land and water, combined with the tireless labor of its people, allowed the Achaemenid Empire to sustain its grandeur. As you drift off, imagine the gentle rustle of wheat in the wind, the scent of ripe fruit, and the quiet hum of a civilization deeply rooted in the earth's nurturing embrace, a remarkably soothing thought from the nourishing fields. Let's now consider how the immense Achaemenid Empire actually funded itself, through taxes and tribute. This wasn't simply a matter of collecting coins. It was a sophisticated, if sometimes burdensome, system designed to channel the wealth of diverse regions into the imperial coffers, sustaining the king's lavish court, his vast army, and monumental building projects. You wouldn't be filling out a tax return. You'd be contributing directly to the machinery of empire. Prior to Darius I's reforms, the system of imperial revenue was somewhat ad hoc, often relying on gifts and irregular levies. However, Darius revolutionized this, establishing a highly organized and standardized system of tribute levied on each of the empire's satrapies provinces. Imagine a vast ledger, meticulously detailing what each region owed to the great king. This wasn't just arbitrary extraction. It was a carefully calculated system, designed to reflect the wealth and productive capacity of each region. Historians still argue about the exact methods of assessment and the fairness of the tribute system, but its effectiveness is clear. Tribute was often paid in a variety of forms, reflecting the resources of the local region. This could include vast quantities of silver and gold, but also agricultural produce like grain and dates, livestock like horses and sheep, and even finished goods like textiles, timber, and valuable minerals. For instance, wealthy Babylon might contribute silver and fine cloths, while regions known for their horses would send magnificent steeds for the king's cavalry. You might see a long procession of camels laden with precious goods, or herds of cattle being driven towards a collection point, all destined for the imperial center. It's a bit like a giant, ancient supply chain, with every province contributing its unique strengths. The collection of tribute was overseen by the satrap governor of each province, working in conjunction with royal tax collectors. To ensure honesty and prevent corruption, the king also sent out special inspectors, known as the king's eyes and ears, who would secretly audit affairs and report directly back to the monarch. Imagine the anxiety of a satrap, knowing that a royal inspector could appear at any moment, checking his books. This system of checks and balances, while not foolproof, aimed to maintain integrity within the vast administration. Beyond this imperial tribute, there were also various forms of local taxation. You, as an ordinary subject, would likely pay taxes in the form of a portion of your harvest, or perhaps a levy on your livestock. There might also be duties on goods passing through markets, or tolls for using roads and bridges. This meant that, while the grand tribute funded the empire, local taxes supported regional administration and local services. You wouldn't be paying income tax, but your contribution would be just as tangible. In goods or labor, the revenue generated from these taxes and tribute was truly immense. It funded the construction of awe-inspiring palaces like Persepolis, requiring vast quantities of stone, timber, and skilled labor. It supported the enormous standing army, providing salaries, equipment, and provisions for hundreds of thousands of soldiers. It paid for the vast bureaucracy, the scribes, administrators, and officials who managed the sprawling empire. Imagine the sheer financial muscle required to keep such a vast and complex entity running smoothly. Quirky tidbit: there are records showing that even some of the royal women had their own income from their estates and often contributed large sums to religious projects or even military endeavors. So, even the queens were essentially high-net-worth individuals who understood the value of good financial management. Ultimately, the system of taxes and tribute was the financial engine of the Achaemenid Empire. It was a sophisticated mechanism that allowed a relatively small core of Persians to control and benefit from the wealth of an immense and diverse population, providing the resources needed for its grandeur and stability. As you drift off, imagine the quiet murmur of ancient accountants, meticulously tallying the wealth of an empire, a strangely soothing thought in its methodical precision. Having considered the fiscal backbone of the empire, let's now explore the living, breathing companions who shared the ancient Persian world, animals in Persian life. Beyond their utility, animals held deep cultural, religious, and symbolic significance, interwoven into every aspect of daily existence, from the fields to the royal court. You wouldn't find pet cafes, but animals were undeniably central to their world. Perhaps the most revered and important animal was the horse. The Persians, particularly the Medes and Persians themselves, were renowned for their exceptional horsemanship. Horses were essential for the military, forming the backbone of the formidable cavalry units, and for rapid communication via the royal roads messenger system. Imagine the power and majesty of a Nicean horse, a prized breed known for its strength and speed, revered as a symbol of nobility and virility. Beyond their military utility, horses were also used for hunting and, as we explored, for recreational riding among the elite. You wouldn't be walking your dog, you'd be grooming your horse, knowing its vital role in your life and status. Historians still argue about the precise breeding techniques for these famed horses, but their quality was legendary. Camels, especially the two-humped Bactrian camels, were indispensable for transport and trade. Their incredible endurance, ability to carry heavy loads, and adaptation to arid environments made them the trucks of the ancient world. Imagine the rhythmic sway of a camel caravan laden with spices and silks, slowly making its way across the desert, their quiet footsteps a constant backdrop to life on the trade routes. You might even chuckle softly, imagining the ancient equivalent of a camel traffic jam, though likely far less frustrating than a modern one. For daily sustenance and labor, oxen, donkeys, and mules played crucial roles. Oxen pulled plows in the fields, providing the brute strength needed for agriculture. Donkeys and mules were used for carrying lighter loads, for personal travel, and for grinding grain. Imagine the familiar sounds of a village, the lowing of oxen, the braying of donkeys, all contributing to the soundtrack of a working day. These animals were not just tools. They were partners in labor, often sharing the lives of the families they served. Sheep and goats were fundamental to the pastoral economy, providing meat, milk, cheese, wool for textiles, and hides. You would see vast flocks being tended by shepherds, a timeless scene across the Iranian plateau. Their presence was a constant reminder of the fundamental resources that sustained the population. The domestication of these animals had been perfected over millennia in the region, forming the basis of their textile and dairy industries. Beyond domesticated animals, wild animals also held significance, both as formidable foes and symbolic creatures. Lions and other predatory animals were hunted by the king and nobles, demonstrating their courage and mastery over the natural world. These hunts were often depicted in royal art, emphasizing the king's role as protector. Mythical creatures, often composite beasts like the winged human-headed bulls Lamassu guarding palace gates, were powerful symbols, blending animal forms with human intellect, embodying protection and wisdom. You might feel a primal thrill imagining a lion hunt, or a quiet sense of awe before a colossal mythical beast carved in stone. Even smaller creatures had a role. Dogs were kept as loyal companions and for guarding flocks and homes. Cats, while not as revered as in Egypt, were likely present in households, helping to control pests. Birds were kept for their song or for falconry among the elite, adding another layer of interaction with the animal kingdom. Quirky tidbit: there's evidence that some royal courts had vast menageries, collecting exotic animals from across the empire, purely for display and prestige. So, imagine an ancient Persian zoo, a truly exotic collection of living trophies for the great king. Ultimately, animals in ancient Persia were deeply integrated into human life, serving practical, economic, symbolic, and even spiritual purposes. They were companions, laborers, sources of sustenance, and powerful symbols, reflecting a civilization that lived in close harmony and sometimes in fierce struggle with the natural world. As you drift into dreams, imagine the soft whinny of a horse or the gentle bleating of a sheep, timeless sounds echoing across the ancient plains. From the living landscape of animals, let's now transition to the more dramatic and often destructive aspect of empire: warfare and conquest. The Achaemenid Empire was not born in peace, nor was it maintained without military might. Its history is replete with campaigns, from its expansion under Cyrus and Darius to its ultimate clashes with the Greek city-states and Alexander the Great. You wouldn't be watching a historical documentary. You'd be experiencing the immense scale and brutal reality of ancient conflict. The Persian approach to warfare was characterized by its massive scale and logistical sophistication. As we briefly touched upon when discussing the army, the great king could field enormous armies, drawing troops from across his vast empire. Imagine hundreds of thousands of soldiers, a kaleidoscope of different ethnic groups, languages, and fighting styles, all marching under the banner of the great king. This was a spectacle of military power unprecedented in many parts of the ancient world. Historians still argue about the precise numbers involved in their largest campaigns, but they were undoubtedly staggering. Persian military tactics often relied on the strength of their archers and cavalry. Massed archers would unleash volleys of arrows, softening enemy lines before the heavy infantry, often armed with spears and shields, would engage in close-quarters combat. The famed Persian cavalry, known for their skill and speed, would be used for flanking maneuvers, pursuing retreating enemies, or disrupting enemy formations. Imagine the terrifying whiz of thousands of arrows overhead, followed by the thunder of hooves as the cavalry charges. You wouldn't be playing a video game. You'd be hearing the clash of bronze and the shouts of men. A truly overwhelming sensory experience. Siege warfare was also a crucial component of Persian campaigns. When facing fortified cities, they employed sophisticated techniques to breach defenses. This involved building siege ramps, using battering rams, and even diverting rivers to undermine walls. Imagine the painstaking effort of constructing a massive ramp under enemy fire, slowly creeping towards the walls of a defiant city. It was a brutal, drawn-out process, often resulting in heavy casualties for both attackers and defenders. The goal of Persian conquest was not always total annihilation. While resistance could be met with brutal force, the Persians were often pragmatic rulers. Once a territory was subdued, they typically aimed for integration and tribute, allowing conquered peoples to retain much of their own culture, religion, and local administration, provided they paid their dues and acknowledged the great king's authority. This policy of relative tolerance, compared to some other empires, helped to maintain stability across their vast domain. You might find yourself conquered, but still practicing your ancestral religion, a surprisingly lenient outcome for the time. However, the reality of warfare was grim. Battles were bloody and chaotic, often resulting in immense casualties. The sounds of combat clanging metal, cries of pain, the roar of battle would have been deafening and terrifying. The aftermath of a battle was equally grim. Fallen soldiers, destroyed landscapes, and the often harsh treatment of captives. You wouldn't be seeing sanitized movie scenes. You'd be seeing the stark, brutal consequences of ancient warfare. Quirky tidbit: the Persians sometimes used psychological warfare, displaying severed heads or parading captured leaders to break the morale of enemy forces. It wasn't exactly friendly persuasion, but it certainly got the message across in a very blunt way. Ultimately, warfare and conquest were inextricable from the formation and maintenance of the Achaemenid Empire. They were the tools by which power was established and projected, enabling the prosperity and cultural exchange that defined much of Persian civilization. As you drift off, imagine the distant echoes of ancient battles, a reminder of the forces that shaped this immense empire, now fading into the quiet of history. Moving from the roar of battle, let's explore a quieter, yet equally vital, aspect of the Achaemenid Empire: diplomacy and treaties. Governing such a vast and diverse realm wasn't just about military might. It required shrewd negotiation, strategic alliances, and a sophisticated understanding of international relations. You wouldn't be attending a UN summit. You'd be witnessing ancient statecraft in action, often over shared meals and elaborate gifts. The great king was not merely a conqueror. He was also a master diplomat. The Persian Empire, by its very nature, was a multi-ethnic entity, and maintaining stability within its borders, as well as managing relations with powerful neighbors, required constant negotiation. Imagine emissaries from distant lands arriving at the royal court, bearing gifts and pleas, seeking the king's favor or forging new alliances. The sheer number of cultures and languages that the Persian court dealt with necessitated a high degree of diplomatic skill. Historians still debate the extent to which diplomatic strategies were formalized, but their effectiveness is evident in the long periods of Pax Persica. The Persian peace, treaties, and alliances were crucial for securing borders, managing trade routes, and projecting influence without constant military intervention. The Persians often formed agreements with neighboring states, offering protection or favorable trade terms in exchange for loyalty, resources, or military support. These agreements were typically sealed with oaths, religious ceremonies, and the exchange of valuable gifts, creating a sense of mutual obligation. You might imagine a scene where a Persian satrap is carefully negotiating terms with a local chieftain, knowing the vast power of the king stands behind him. One of the most famous examples of Persian diplomacy involved their relationship with the Greek city-states. Despite periods of intense conflict, the Persians frequently engaged in complex diplomatic maneuvers, playing different Greek cities against each other, offering financial support, or mediating disputes. This divide and conquer strategy, often known as Archer's gold, referring to the gold coins used to bribe Greek leaders, proved remarkably effective in preventing a unified Greek front against the empire for many years. You might find yourself observing envoys from Athens or Sparta, dressed in their distinct attire, arguing their case before a Persian official, highlighting the subtle dance of power. The exchange of ambassadors and envoys was a regular occurrence. These individuals were highly respected, their safety guaranteed even in times of tension, as they represented the authority of their rulers. They would travel along the royal road, carrying messages, proposals, and gifts, serving as living conduits of international relations. Imagine the detailed briefings they would receive before departing, memorizing intricate protocols and nuances of language to avoid accidental offense. You wouldn't be sending a text message. You'd be trusting a person with your entire diplomatic mission. Beyond formal treaties, cultural exchange through diplomatic interactions was significant. Ideas, artistic styles, and technological innovations flowed back and forth, enriching all involved. Persian court etiquette, architectural styles, and even culinary practices found their way into other cultures, while the Persians, in turn, adopted elements from their neighbors. It's a quiet testament to the soft power of diplomacy, where influence spreads not through force, but through mutual admiration and exchange. Quirky tidbit: there are accounts of Persian kings sending prized horses or even highly skilled artisans as gifts to foreign rulers, not just as a gesture of goodwill, but also as a subtle display of their immense wealth and superior resources. So, if you received a gift from the great king, it wasn't just a nice gesture. It was a carefully calculated piece of foreign policy. Ultimately, Persian diplomacy and treaties reveal an empire that understood the power of negotiation and collaboration alongside military might. It was a sophisticated web of relationships, constantly managed to ensure stability, extend influence, and secure the vast resources necessary for imperial grandeur. As you drift off to sleep, imagine the quiet murmur of ancient negotiations, shaping the fates of nations with words and strategy, a soothing thought in its complexity. From the intricate world of ancient diplomacy, let's fast forward through the millennia and consider the enduring impact of this mighty civilization, the legacy and influence of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. Though its physical structures may lie in ruins, its ideas, innovations, and cultural imprints resonated far beyond its own time and geographical boundaries, shaping subsequent empires and even aspects of your modern world. You wouldn't find a direct app download, but its code is embedded in history. Perhaps one of the most significant legacies is the very concept of empire itself. The Achaemenids pioneered a model of imperial governance that was remarkably effective for its time, a vast, centralized administration ruling diverse peoples through a system of satrapies, unified by a common legal framework, a shared language. For administration, Aramaic, and efficient communication routes like the Royal Road. This organizational blueprint profoundly influenced later empires, including the Romans, and even modern notions of statecraft and bureaucratic efficiency. Imagine the sheer organizational genius required to manage such a diverse and widespread realm, a blueprint that echoes through history. Historians still argue about the precise degree to which Rome directly copied Persian administrative methods, but parallels are undeniable. The art and architecture of Persia, which we explored earlier, left an indelible mark. The colossal palaces, the intricate relief sculptures, and the distinctive column capitals inspired later artistic traditions throughout the Middle East and beyond. The Chahobog four-part garden design, originating in Persia, became a fundamental element of Islamic garden design, spreading across the world and influencing everything from the Taj Mahal to formal gardens in Europe. So, the next time you see a beautifully symmetrical garden, you're witnessing a quiet echo of ancient Persian aesthetics in terms of philosophy and religion. The influence of Zoroastrianism is profound. Its dualistic concepts of good and evil, its emphasis on individual moral choice, a final judgment, and a heaven and hell are ideas that have resonated deeply with, and arguably influenced, later Abrahamic religions like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. While direct causal links are still debated by scholars, the thematic similarities are striking. You might find yourself quietly contemplating the enduring power of these ancient spiritual concepts, subtly shaping the moral compass of billions. The Persian Empire also served as a crucial cultural bridge between East and West, by connecting India, Central Asia, and the Mediterranean world through trade routes like the early Silk Road. It facilitated an unprecedented exchange of goods, technologies, and ideas. Spices, silks, precious stones, scientific knowledge, and artistic motifs flowed across its vast territories, enriching every culture they touched. Imagine the quiet hum of cross-cultural dialogue, an ancient form of globalization. Even seemingly mundane innovations had a lasting impact. The Qanot system of water management, for instance, was adopted and spread by various cultures, profoundly influencing agriculture and urban development in arid regions across North Africa, the Middle East, and even parts of Europe. This ingenious method of water delivery continues to be used in some areas today, a living testament to Persian engineering. You might not see it, but its legacy flows quietly beneath the surface. Quirky tidbit: the very word paradise comes from the old Persian paradisa, meaning a walled garden. So, every time you use the word paradise, you are speaking a piece of ancient Persian, a quiet linguistic echo across the millennia. Ultimately, the Achaemenid Persian Empire wasn't just a fleeting moment in history. It was a crucible of innovation, a powerhouse of administration, and a grand canvas for cultural synthesis. Its legacy is woven into the fabric of subsequent civilizations, influencing everything from political structures to religious thought and artistic expression. As you drift off to sleep, let the quiet whisper of these enduring influences remind you that even the most ancient empires leave a lasting imprint on the tapestry of human history. From the enduring echoes of its legacy, let's now turn to the inevitable, the gradual unraveling of even the grandest tapestries, the decline and fall of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. This wasn't a sudden collapse, but a complex interplay of internal weaknesses and external pressures that culminated in its dramatic overthrow by Alexander the Great. You wouldn't be witnessing a sudden earthquake. It was more like a slow, deliberate erosion by the 4th century BCE. After 2 centuries of immense power, the Achaemenid Empire began to show signs of internal strain. One significant factor was the increasing instability within the royal court. Following the death of Darius II in 404 BCE, a series of weak kings and frequent assassinations plagued the throne. Imagine a revolving door of rulers, each struggling to consolidate power amidst bitter infighting among ambitious courtiers and family members. This constant struggle for succession weakened the central authority of the great king, leading to a loss of firm control over the vast empire. Historians still argue about whether this internal strife was a primary cause or merely a symptom of deeper systemic issues. Another challenge came from rebellions in the satrapies. As central authority waned, ambitious satraps, governors in distant provinces like Egypt and various parts of Anatolia, often asserted greater independence, sometimes even outright revolting against imperial rule. These rebellions, while often eventually suppressed, drained the empire's resources and diverted military attention from external threats. Imagine a persistent, low-grade fever, constantly weakening the body of the empire. You wouldn't be dealing with a full-blown revolution. It was more like a slow, simmering discontent in the periphery. Economically, the empire, despite its immense wealth, faced challenges. Maintaining such a vast army and an elaborate bureaucracy was incredibly expensive. The flow of tribute, while substantial, may not have always kept pace with the growing expenditures, especially during periods of internal strife or costly foreign wars. While the general population likely felt the burden of taxes and levies, the sheer scale of imperial spending was immense. You might imagine the ancient treasury as a vast but increasingly porous sieve, militarily. While the Persian army remained formidable in numbers, there are suggestions that its quality, particularly among its non-Persian levies, might have declined in later periods. The constant need to suppress rebellions and engage in protracted conflicts, especially against the Greek city-states, also took its toll on military strength and resources. They faced increasingly professional and well-drilled adversaries, and while still capable of raising vast forces, their tactical superiority was no longer guaranteed. The fatal blow, however, came from the west, the rise of Macedon under Philip II and then his son, Alexander the Great. Philip had unified the Greek city-states and built a formidable, disciplined army. When Alexander inherited this force, he launched a meticulously planned invasion of the Persian Empire, capitalizing on its existing weaknesses. Imagine a highly focused, agile predator sensing weakness in a colossal but slightly lumbering beast. The decisive battles, Granicus, Issus, and Gaugamela, saw the highly disciplined Macedonian phalanx and cavalry defeat the larger, but less cohesively commanded, Persian forces. Despite brave resistance, the Persian military, plagued by leadership issues and perhaps a less unified command structure, could not withstand Alexander's brilliant generalship and the sheer force of his determined army. You wouldn't be watching a chess match. You'd be witnessing a relentless onslaught, a perfect storm of military genius and imperial vulnerability. Ultimately, the fall of the Achaemenid Empire was not solely due to external conquest, but a culmination of internal stresses exacerbated by a determined and innovative adversary. It marked the end of an era, but as we've seen, not the end of its influence. As you drift off, let the quiet drama of this ancient decline unfold, a gentle reminder that even the mightiest empires eventually yield to the inexorable march of time. As the grand narrative of the Achaemenid Empire draws to a close, with the dust of Gaugamela settling and Alexander's shadow extending across its former lands, let us conclude with the whispers of the past. This final reflection isn't about grand historical events, but about the quiet echoes of everyday life, the enduring human experiences that transcend millennia, fading gently into the serene quiet of your night. Imagine, one last time, a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves of a cypress tree in a long-lost Persian garden. Can you almost hear the soft splash of water in a Connaught channel, still flowing, unseen, beneath the earth? It's a reminder of the ingenious ways ancient peoples connected with their world, a testament to their quiet perseverance. Think of the patient hands that shaped the mud bricks for a simple home, or the intricate gold threads woven into a royal robe. Each action, no matter how small, was a brushstroke in the vast canvas of their civilization. Consider the rhythmic sounds of daily life that would have filled the ancient air, the gentle lowing of oxen pulling a plough in a sun-drenched field, the distant jingle of camel bells on a trade route, the murmur of conversation in a bustling market where stories and laughter mingled with the scent of spices. These aren't the loud pronouncements of kings, but the soft, continuous hum of humanity, living, striving, and finding moments of joy amidst the practicalities of existence. Perhaps you can picture an ancient Persian child, no different from any child today, playing with a simple toy, or learning from their elder a skill passed down through generations. Or imagine a family gathered around a humble meal of flatbread and dates, sharing stories under the vast star-filled desert sky, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a small oil lamp. These are the moments that truly connect us. Across time, the shared human experience of family, community, and the simple comfort of being together. The echoes of their beliefs still resonate too. The quiet conviction of Zoroastrianism, with its emphasis on good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, speaks to an enduring human desire for meaning and morality. It's a gentle whisper about the cosmic dance of light and shadow, and the power of individual choice. You might feel a soft reassurance in the idea that even thousands of years ago, people grappled with questions of purpose and virtue, just as we do today. As the imagery begins to soften and the ancient sounds fade into the quiet hum of your own room, remember the intricate details, the curl of a sculpted beard, the vibrant flash of a glazed brick, the steady flow of water bringing life to a barren land. These small, specific facts, when woven together, create a rich tapestry of history, far more soothing than any grand battle cry. The journey through ancient Persia is now complete. Allow the lingering thoughts of its grandeur, its daily rhythms, and its quiet ingenuity to blend with your own peaceful breathing. Let the ancient dust settle, the voices soften, and the light of those faraway days gently dim. Rest now, knowing that even in the vastness of history, there is a quiet beauty in every detail, and every story eventually finds its gentle conclusion. Let the serene depths of the past lull you into a deep, restorative sleep. *, Sweet dreams.